Disappearances have always carried a haunting mystery. When someone vanishes without a trace, families are left searching for answers, and communities are left with questions that may never be resolved. But what happens when those long-lost faces suddenly reappear, years or even decades later? In this video, we uncover 3 extraordinary cases where people who were presumed dead or gone forever stunned the world by returning. From a teenager in Australia hidden in plain sight, to a woman missing for over 30 years found alive in Puerto Rico. And finally, a girl from Britain whose case remained unsolved for more than half a century. These stories remind us that truth can be stranger than fiction. Natasha Ann Ryan. Natasha Ann Ryan was born on the 9th of May, 1984, in Rockhampton, Queensland, Australia. Her childhood details remain limited, yet her early years formed the beginning of a story that would later capture national attention. Growing up in Rockhampton during the 1990s, she entered her teenage years surrounded by the familiarity of her hometown. At the age of 14, Natasha's life shifted into circumstances that would forever define her legacy. She was introduced to the world as an ordinary teenager, yet her sudden disappearance would turn her into one of the most unusual and widely discussed cases in Australian history. On 31st August 1998, 14-year-old Natasha Ryan was dropped off at school by her mother in Rockhampton. She never entered her classes that morning and was soon reported missing. Her disappearance immediately raised alarm, especially because just a month earlier, she had briefly run away with her 22-year-old boyfriend, Scott Black. That earlier incident had lasted only 2 days, but this time, the outcome was far different. Initial searches began quickly, and the Rockhampton community grew tense. As days turned into weeks, the hope of finding her alive began to fade. Investigators, family members, and locals feared the worst. In the weeks that followed, police began focusing on those closest to her. At first, suspicion fell on her best friend, 15-year-old Mayoha Tokatawa. Investigators believed she might somehow be involved in Natasha's disappearance. As the case expanded, attention shifted to Leonard Fraser, a convicted serial killer operating in the area. Ryan's case was eventually added to a series of investigations into missing girls in Rockhampton. Police and state emergency service volunteers carried out exhaustive searches across the region. Despite their efforts, no trace of Natasha was found. Her family eventually conceded she was gone, holding a memorial service in Bundaberg on her 17th birthday in 2001. Then, in April 2003, during Fraser's murder trial, the case took an extraordinary turn. Police received an anonymous letter providing a phone number and address tied to Natasha's whereabouts. Acting on the information, they raided a house in North Rockhampton on the 10th of April 2003. To their shock, Natasha was alive. She was discovered hiding in a bedroom cupboard nearly 5 years after she had first gone missing. It was soon revealed that Natasha had been living with Scott Black since the day she disappeared in 1998. Media outlets quickly labeled her the girl in the cupboard. The phrase implied she had been held in confinement, yet the truth was more complex. She only hid in the cupboard when visitors arrived unexpectedly. For most of those years, Natasha lived freely inside the house, though always behind closed curtains. Occasionally, she ventured outside, but only under the cover of darkness, including a secret midnight trip to the beach. Her rediscovery stunned not just Australia, but the entire world. The announcement that a girl presumed murdered for nearly 5 years had been alive all along was made in the middle of Fraser's trial. On the 30th of April, 2003, Natasha Ryan appeared in court and testified that she had never met Fraser, nor the witness who had claimed to see them together. Her testimony shattered previous assumptions, yet allowed the trial to proceed. By 2003, Natasha Ryan's case had transformed from a tragic disappearance into an astonishing tale of survival, secrecy, and discovery. For nearly 5 years, she lived hidden in plain sight, while her community mourned her as lost. Her sudden reappearance remains one of the most remarkable chapters in Australian true crime history. Patricia Kopta. Patricia Kopta's early life was marked by promise and achievement. Known as a straight-A student, she excelled academically and demonstrated discipline from a young age. After graduation, she worked in finance at a Pittsburgh plate glass company where her reliability and precision earned respect. Beyond work, Patricia pursued modeling and became a skilled dance instructor, often attending weekly ballroom dancing events that reflected her love for music and rhythm. She also vacationed frequently in Puerto Rico with friends, enjoying the island's beaches and warm climate. Yet, changes emerged when persistent migraines forced her to leave her longtime job, a shift that introduced noticeable alterations in her behavior and outlook. Patricia's marriage to Bob Kopta became a defining chapter in her life. They first met near a river in Pittsburgh when Bob offered her and her friends a ride on his boat. That moment led to a relationship that grew steadily, culminating in their marriage in 1972. For 2 decades, they built a life together, sharing routines and memories that shaped their bond. Bob later recalled her personality with affection, noting her interest in vibrant city life and her frequent mention of Puerto Rico's inviting climate. When Patricia disappeared, the foundation of their 20-year partnership collapsed, leaving Bob with profound loss and the lifelong absence of a woman he deeply cherished. Patricia's life entered a new and unusual phase as she became a familiar presence on the streets of Pittsburgh. Known for her slender frame, she was soon nicknamed the Sparrow, a title that followed her throughout the city. She often stood in parking lots and along busy roads, warning strangers that the world was coming to an end and describing visions of the Virgin Mary. Family members observed troubling signs of mental health struggles. Doctors diagnosed her with schizophrenia and delusions of grandeur, which led to a brief period of institutionalization. After her release, she returned to the streets, continuing to preach her warnings with unshaken intensity. Patricia frequently appeared at large gatherings, baseball games, concerts, and bustling public spaces, where her passionate sermons made her recognizable, embedding her identity as a street preacher known far beyond her immediate community. In the summer of 1992, Patricia was last seen in Pittsburgh, a moment that marked the beginning of decades of uncertainty. When she failed to return, her husband Bob reported her missing several months later in the fall. At first, suspicion was limited, as Bob explained that Patricia occasionally vanished for short periods, a pattern consistent with her past. Investigators considered her mental health history and the possibility that she had left voluntarily to avoid institutionalization, something she had previously expressed. Despite these indications, the lack of answers deepened concern. Authorities even turned to a psychic for guidance, reflecting their desperation. Bob's own search was tireless. He placed advertisements in Puerto Rican newspapers following her mention of the island. Yet, as years passed without progress, he eventually sought and obtained a legal death declaration. After leaving Pittsburgh, Patricia's undocumented years were spent moving quietly through northern Puerto Rican towns, including Naranjito, Corozal, and Toa Alta. She lived on the margins, wandering the streets without stable shelter or known connections. In 1999, her circumstances changed when authorities found her in need and placed her in an adult care home. For decades inside the facility, Patricia withheld details about her past, refusing to explain where she came from or why she was there. At one point, she vaguely suggested that she had arrived by cruise ship, though she offered nothing further. Her life remained marked by secrecy until dementia slowly began eroding the barriers she had built around her identity. In her later years, Patricia's struggle with dementia began to erode the secrecy she had maintained for decades. Small fragments of her past surfaced, spoken in ways that caught the attention of those around her. A social worker at the care home recognized the significance of these details and, suspecting a deeper story, contacted Ross Township Police through Interpol. Authorities initiated an investigation, reaching out to Patricia's family for assistance. A 9-month process followed, in which DNA samples from her sister, Gloria Smith, and her nephew were carefully compared. Before the scientific results were finalized, photographs already convinced her family they had found Patricia. The combination of gradual revelations, international cooperation, and scientific verification ultimately confirmed the truth. The woman living quietly in Puerto Rico was indeed Patricia Kopta, missing from Pittsburgh for more than 30 years. When Patricia's identity was confirmed, her family's reactions were filled with shock and emotion, Her sister, Gloria, described the news as total shock, unable to believe that Patricia was alive after so many years. Despite her sister's dementia making conversation nearly impossible, Gloria expressed a strong desire to travel to Puerto Rico, simply to see her, embrace her, and remind her she was loved. Bob Kopta shared both relief and sadness. For decades, he had lived with painful uncertainty, wondering if unidentified bodies belonged to Patricia. He acknowledged she could have returned home, but also recognized her lifelong longing for a warm climate. The discovery brought closure, yet it left lingering sorrow from decades of absence. Patricia's story stands as a rare and extraordinary example within the world of missing person investigations. For more than 30 years, she was presumed dead, yet she lived quietly on an island far from home, maintaining silence about her origins. Her case reveals the immense challenges authorities face when mental health struggles and personal choices intertwine, leaving families uncertain and investigators without clear direction. The eventual discovery demonstrated how persistence and international cooperation can bridge decades of unanswered questions. It also showed how dementia, while tragic, inadvertently opened the door to long-hidden truths. For her husband, Bob, the revelation brought closure, but also a reminder of lost years. For her sister, Gloria, it created both hope and sorrow, emphasizing enduring love despite separation. Patricia's survival story continues to reflect the fragile balance between disappearance, discovery, and resolution. Sheila Fox. In 1972, the quiet city of Coventry became the backdrop to a mystery that would span more than 5 decades. 16-year-old Sheila Fox vanished from her home, leaving no clear explanation for her disappearance. At the time, she was living with her parents, and her life seemed typical for a teenager of her age. Yet, speculation quickly arose. Some believed she might have been involved in a relationship with a man, a possibility that suggested she could have left of her own choice. West Midlands police considered that Sheila may have moved away from the area, but despite their inquiries, no evidence emerged to support this idea. Each lead faded without conclusion, and as the years passed, her absence grew into one of the region's longest-running missing person investigations. What remained were unanswered questions. How had a young girl simply vanished, and why did no trace ever surface? Following Sheila Fox's disappearance in 1972, West Midlands police began their investigation with urgency. They considered the possibility that Sheila had left her home voluntarily, influenced perhaps by a personal relationship. At the same time, officers were careful not to rule out other circumstances. Theories remained open, and investigators suggested she might have left Coventry altogether. Despite their inquiries, no solid evidence surfaced to confirm any direction. Leads were scarce, and each thread dissolved without resolution. With no witness accounts or physical proof, the case stood still. The investigation slowed, shaped by the limited resources of the era. Sheila's fate remained unknown, her absence unresolved. Over time, her file joined the long list of Britain's unsolved missing person cases, a silent reminder of unanswered questions. As the years passed, Sheila Fox's disappearance gradually faded from newspaper headlines, though it never left the files of West Midlands police. With so little to investigate, the case eventually stalled and was formally regarded as cold. Despite its status as one of the force's longest-running mysteries, no breakthroughs appeared across the passing decades. For more than 50 years, questions lingered quietly among those who still remembered her name. Sheila's absence came to symbolize the wider challenge of unresolved disappearances across Britain. Limited evidence, scarce resources, and fading memories all contributed to the silence that surrounded her case, leaving behind a mystery that persisted until renewed efforts reignited the search. In December 2024, West Midlands police revisited the disappearance of Sheila Fox with a renewed sense of purpose. Investigators searched through existing material and uncovered a grainy photograph of Sheila, taken around the time of her disappearance in 1972. The decision was made to release the image publicly, posting it on the police website and across social media channels. The aim was simple: reignite public interest in a case that had remained unsolved. For more than 5 decades, the appeal produced an almost immediate response. Within hours, members of the public came forward, providing crucial information that directed police to new leads. The momentum that had been absent for years suddenly returned, driven not by fresh forensic evidence but by public recognition of a long-lost face. By January 2025, the investigation reached its conclusion. Officers confirmed that Sheila Fox had been found alive and well. She was living in another part of the country, safe and beyond immediate danger. This rediscovery closed one of Britain's longest unresolved missing person cases, ending 52 years of uncertainty with a definitive resolution. Following the rediscovery of Sheila Fox, West Midlands Police formally described the outcome as the conclusion of one of their longest-running missing person investigations. A spokesperson acknowledged the significance of the development and credited the release of a single photograph as the crucial turning point. The image, circulated through official channels and social media, had prompted members of the public to come forward with vital information that ultimately led investigators to Sheila. Detective Sergeant Jenna Shaw, speaking on behalf of the cold case team, explained how officers had carefully searched through every piece of available evidence. Their persistence uncovered the photograph, which became the key to solving the case after 52 years. Shaw emphasized the remarkable role of community involvement in bringing resolution to an investigation that had endured for decades. In her remarks, Shaw also highlighted the dedication of Detective Constable Sean Reeve, recognizing his work as central to the case's conclusion. His commitment, combined with the responsiveness of the public, provided the breakthrough needed. The police statements underscored persistence, teamwork, and the importance of collaboration between investigators and the wider community. The resolution of Sheila Fox's disappearance underscored the persistence required in missing person investigations. West Midlands Police emphasized that every missing person has a story, and that families and communities deserve answers, even when decades have passed without progress. Her rediscovery highlighted the importance of modern investigative practices, particularly the ability to revisit evidence with new determination. The release of a single photograph showed how community participation remains vital in solving long-standing mysteries. Public involvement, combined with the careful work of cold case teams, created the circumstances that finally brought this case to an end. Though Sheila's decades away remain unexplained in official records, her safe recovery provided relief to investigators who carried the unanswered questions for years. More broadly, her case offered hope that other unresolved disappearances might also one day reach resolution.